Hello dear friends, as you all are aware, we have been conducting online classes for quite a while now using variant online platforms. One of the important questions that arises in this case is that how do we now evaluate our students? How do we conduct these online
That's an important
examinations?
step of the teaching process. We have to evaluate our students.
Right. So how do we conduct these online examinations?
But there are a couple of platforms which are available. Most of us have already been using Google Classroom for uploading materials and
Assignments.
yeah, exactly, assignments and evaluating them and assigning marks to the students. Uh, Having an examination is a little bit different than giving an assignment.
Absolutely.
There are so many factors, there are a couple of platforms like Kahoot is there, which is paid, and
We have quizzes.
Quizzes is there. Yes, exactly. It's free. But since the ease of use and the familiarity, since
Right.
we have mainly been using this Google platform, Google Classroom platform. So I guess Google Classroom is the one that we should be, getting
Right.
familiar with.
So in today's session, we'll be basically talking about how do we make use of this Google Classroom to conduct online examinations. So dear friends, in order to make use of Google Classroom for conducting these online classes, what we need to do is that you can simply open this Google in your browser, whatever browser you are making use of, and just make sure that you are basically logged into your Google account. So up here, as you see this menu, you can find out, scroll down, and you will find your Google Classroom there. Just click on the Google Classroom. That will open up on the window for Google Classroom. As you can see, that multiple classrooms have already been created that I have been using to teach my students.
We expect we expect that the teachers have already created classrooms, and
we assume that teachers are familiar, and in case if they are not, all they need to do is that just create a new classroom simply by typing Google Classroom in their Google window, and once the Google Classroom window appears, all you need to do is that here's a plus sign that you can make use of to create a new class. So we'll be creating a new class, making use of this symbol. There's a required field in class name. That means you necessarily have to provide this field. So in this case, I'll be using it as examination. Whatever name you feel comfortable with, you can make use of that name. Section, I guess it's not that important. It's not a required field. If you just provide the details
for identification
purpose, you can make use of that. So I'll be using it as MCA because we have the
maybe a semester name or class name.
Say for example MCA 3, I can make use of. I've been teaching this design analysis of algorithm in MCA 3. So let's assume the name of the subject is algorithms in this case, and room we can specify. It does not a virtual room, right? So just simply by creating, clicking on the create button, we have actually created a new class. It might take a while basically to create new class.
So people might have already created some classes.
Yes,
but they upload the material,
yes.
And they might have already added
students. We are working on this assumption that people are basically familiar with these concepts, but even if they are not, should not be a problem. It's basically very simple.
We're still going through that.
Absolutely. So
once a class
so what's happened in this case is that a new classroom has been created with the name examination for MCA 3rd. This is a class code, and you don't need to worry about these things as we'll be talking about how do we basically create online examinations using this classroom. So you can see
we might first add some students if people are not familiar with that.
Absolutely.
So we go to people tab.
Yes, absolutely. So just in case that if you're not familiar and if you do not have any students already added in your Google Classroom, what you can do is that you simply need to type in you just need to click the add button and type in the email ID of your students. So once you type in the email ID of your students, say for example in this case if I type ABCD, it's not a valid email ID, so this I'm only using for the sake of an example. At the rate of gmail.com, as you can see. So I can simply click here and invite that student.
Multiple a list of email
or a list of email. You can simply copy, if you have a list of email IDs, you can simply copy them and paste them here, invite, and they will get this invitation in their Gmail accounts. And by clicking on those invitations, they can simply join the classroom. So once you do have those students enrolled or enlisted in your Google Classroom, what I need to do is that I need to basically
the classwork tab.
go to the classwork tab and basically create it. There are multiple options that you have. You can create assignments in this case, or for example, quiz assignments, your questions, or different materials, or reuse
that we
posts
have been uploading so
that we
far.
have been uploading and must be familiar with. So in our case, we'll be taking into consideration the quiz assignment to create an MCQ. The use of this title simply over here is that basically to identify.
Yeah, exactly. You can just it's for our say or for the students' sake
Absolutely.
to give a title, maybe a
That
subject,
what this
a question
form is
paper,
about.
maybe.
What this form is about. Okay. So normally, what you can do is that if you have a course that you are teaching, you can simply make use of the course code as a title. So you can use this, or you can use any other name that you want. These are the different instructions that the students will get basically once they open this form. There are different instructions. If you want them to have some instructions, say for example, the most common instructions being that attempt this many questions, or the number of marks that each such question carries. So whatever instructions you want to pass on to your students, you can basically type them here. So in my case, I'll let my students know that each question in this paper basically carries 1 mark. So you can type in whatever you are comfortable with. That should not be a problem. And you can find out that the moment basically when I created a quiz form, what it has done is that it has basically created a Google form for me.
Yeah,
That
actually, this form is created when you clicked on that quiz assignment. This
Yes.
form is automatically created in your Google Drive.
It's in my Google
Now,
Drive.
what you could have done, it's possible that you might have already created a form in your Google Drive.
Yes.
In that case, you could simply add that add button
Yes.
is
So
there.
if you're already having some kind of a Google form that you have already created, and you just need to import that, you just want to import or reuse that, what you can do is that you can go into your Google Drive, locate that form that you have already created, and simply import that. Or else you can make use of some link or some file. If you have some file created some place, you can simply drag it and place it here, or select it from and simply upload it. You can make use of that.
For the quiz assignment, it's important that either we use this template that is by default been created here, or we already should have some form created. So
to make things easier and to show into this demonstration, what we will do is that we'll make use of this blank quiz and demonstrate how do we create an MCQ using these Google forms. So what I need to do is that I'll simply click on this Google form. It will redirect me to a form, to a Google form. As you can see on your screen, it's a blank quiz. What we should be doing first in the very front is that we'll start setting up the question paper.
maybe we could name the quiz
Yes,
file
absolutely.
just for the sake of identification.
Yeah, absolutely right. So we'll be using that algorithms and description. If you want to give some kind of description about
we could use the same the course
The
code
course
as
codes.
the title of this form, and description again as
we can do
we
that
do
as well.
for students.
Absolutely right. So MCA 1823 is the paper title, and it's about basically design and analysis of algorithm.
Maybe we could specify the time requirements.
Algorithms should be the paper name. Usually, the way physically you have been setting up these question papers, so we have that tab on the top of the question paper where we put maximum number of marks, maximum amount of time, course code. So all those details, if you want, you can basically fill them in this case. Maximum time, allotted time, time it is, and likewise minimum number of this. What's that?
Maximum time is
Maximum
there.
time is there. And
maximum marks is there.
Maximum marks. And all other details, all other details that you
varies
want from the way subjects and the kind of evaluator that we have. So we'll simply move. This is a description that the students will be having. It will be visible to the students once they basically get their hands onto this Google form. So in here, what you can do is that you can basically type in your question, whatever question you have to ask to your students. You can type that, and the kind of response that you want to generate for that question. So we do have multiple options here. So if you can just take us through what are these possible options.
There are so many. When Google has thought about it
Right.
a little bit, and they have given us many options of specifying a specific type of question. So we can have a short answer question, we can have a paragraph question, we can have multiple choice questions, checkbox questions.
Just one
Select.
small interruption here is that for non-computer science teachers, just to like differentiate between a multiple choice and checkbox. In both the cases, we will be having basically multiple choices. But for multiple choices questions, there will be radio buttons, which is circular buttons, whereas for this checkbox, there will be the square buttons.
It depends upon the requirement.
Requirements. And if you want multiple answers, then you can make use of checkboxes.
Google allows multiple choice questions to also have multiple
answers.
but it depends upon the requirement.
Right.
But if we want to auto evaluate and to keep things simple, we should go for
preferably we should go with multiple choice
questions. It is a standard. Most of the academic institutions use
that they make use of.
Yeah.
Okay. So generally we will be worried about the first thing important that we'll be worried about is that how do I identify or how do I ascertain the identity of a particular student. So generally we make use of these enrollment IDs.
Yeah, if we go through, for example, let's suppose we want to fill in have an MCQ test.
Right.
Let's suppose we have an entrance test for let's suppose school. So we have a couple of questions and some answers available, and we have to choose a correct one. But obviously we first need to identify the student. So we should have certain fields which will help us to uniquely identify the student.
Absolutely. So you can ask the student to kindly enter his enrollment number or whatever terminology you are making use of. So this enrollment number, we'll ask it to have a field in terms of a very short answer.
Because we have to type in.
So we'll be doing that. And this is a required field. When I say it's a required field, that means the student cannot skip it. It's mandatory for the student to answer this particular question. And to identify that whether a field has been kept as required or not, a star with a red color. A red color star will appear on top of that question.
You can show that on
the will show it. Yes, absolutely. What you see over here is some validation. So what's this validation about in this case?
It's basically often students sometimes make mistake while entering their enrollment numbers. They might miss a digit, or they might enter some extra digit, or so on and so forth. So if we want to ensure that the students enter the enrollment number correctly, because this is the only field that will help us to identify the student. Because their email ID.
And obviously, we do not want a mess up over there in that.
Yeah, exactly, and it's simple. So what Google does, it allows us to evaluate certain responses from. Validate.
So in this case, if you see these options, one of the option is that the kind of answer that the student specifies is not numeric in nature. So he can only push in basically number of digits, or else you can ask him to enter only text, that is alphabetical characters, or else you can put in the form of a length that how many digits or how many characters can a student enter. So for example, 5 characters only or 6 characters only.
But there is a limitation here, because Google allows us, in terms of length, it allows us to only validate the minimum or the maximum.
Right.
So that will not suffice us, because we want.
We need both of those
constraints. We need to be precisely. Let's suppose if it is 10 digits.
Minimum of these and maximum of these.
Yeah, exactly.
So for those kind of responses, we can basically make use of these regular expressions. Regular expressions basically will take care of. So what we need to say that all those answers that the student specifies in this case, basically they exactly match the kind of pattern or the format we are asking. Right? So how exactly do we specify this pattern? How exactly do we enforce this validation? If I have to only ask for digits to be entered as an enrollment number.
So we have to simply specify to Google that whenever a student enters a number here, it should contain, let's suppose, 10 digits, only digits. So in order to specify digits, so we specify a backward slash and followed by D, which tells Google that it should the field should contain digits.
Right.
Now, how many digits should be there?
So that we pass as a parameter.
Yeah, we specify that in curly brackets.
Curly brackets, and now we call them as parameters.
This is a simple regular expression.
This is what we call as a regular expression.
Yeah, regular expression.
So if you have words that you want to basically accept from the, you can make use of /W, or if you want spaces, you can make use of /S. So these are different. If you are interested in knowing about regular expressions, you can simply Google about them, and you will get all that information about. So over here, as you see, this is a custom error text. In case the student makes an error or a mistake in basically specifying the answer, so what kind of a message that will be reflected or flashed, so that he gets an idea that I have made some kind of an error.
Yeah, this is just a text. Let's suppose a student enters a wrong enrollment number
Yes. So
in terms of length. So we can tell
you
him,
can say simply like invalid enrollment number,
or we can say please enter a valid
or please
enrollment number,
valid,
or something like that.
yeah, something like that. So whatever way you are comfortable, you can basically
And it will be highlighted in red.
It will be highlighted in
Student
red,
will come to know.
so he'll come to know. So this is actually how you make how you basically set up your questions in Google Form. To add more questions to this form,
We would say that this is just the personal identification fields in our question paper.
right.
So the other questions obviously will follow. We can create a section.
You can actually create a section.
So you could show.
So this is very important here, that at a later stage you will realize that why exactly I'm making use of these sections. So for
it's
now,
logical also. No?
So
For
logical
personal
also,
information,
absolutely.
we have a
We have a
section.
separate section for personal
questions.
information, and for rest of the questions we'll be having a separate information. So in here, as you can see, that we can add different sections. So as you can see that we have actually divided our question paper into two sections. Section 1 first will be basically taking care of the personal information that the student specifies, and rest of the section basically will be taking care of the questions pertaining to the particular
The good thing about this is that once we divide our question paper into sections, each section will be shown one after the other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that will obviously help. So first we'll show the first section which asks the students about personal identification details,
right.
And later he will be shown other sections of the question paper.
So he will actually not be having an idea what kind of questions have been asked unless he answers the first section. In that
kind
case.
of, yes.
So in this inside the section 2, if you want, you can continue by giving it a different name, or you can continue with the existing name, whatever you have.
Yeah, we can using.
So let's continue with the name that we have, 18203, and the name is as design and.
We could rename this section 1 as personal details.
Absolutely, if you want, in this case,
complete freedom as
yes, student information we can call it.
Yeah.
So in here,
we could name that the title. The title, yes. The title could be student information.
Yeah, right.
So
whatever way you are basically comfortable, the idea is basically to make
completely flexible.
Yes, absolutely. So in here, what we can do is that using this plus button that you can see, we can basically make use of this to add questions to our section. So as you can see, whatever question you want to ask to your student, you can simply type in your questions. What is the time complexity of some particular algorithm? Say for example, if I make use of linear search here, linear search algorithm. So based upon the subject that you are teaching, whatever subjects you have been teaching, you can basically frame your own questions the way you want to. Now this is important over here, that this is where I specify the
when we specify the multiple choice
questions. This is where I specify the answers. Right?
Yeah, in fact, not the answers, it will be more precise as options.
Options.
That's why
the optional answers. So, right, absolutely. So in this case, if I put as order of n, now to add more options to it, what I can do is that I can simply click on add option.
Yeah.
Or else, if you have added sufficient options and you just want to make sure you want to give the flexibility to the student, then if you have some other answer that's on your mind, so you can simply click add other. That will give him some text space where he can type it in the reply that he feels is basically the correct option. So I can
show them by clicking.
Right. So I'll be using some different answers. I may add up as many as I want. So if I'm done with these answers, I can basically click on add other. This will basically create a separate space for the students wherein they can basically type their own answer that they want to basically they believe is the correct answer. So once you have specified all the possible these options that you have, and you want to make sure that the student answers all these questions, so all you need to do is that you just need to click this required button. It will make it compulsory that you need to answer this particular question. So that's what is going to be reflected on the student's page. Just to make sure that it helps us during the evaluation purposes. What we can do is that we can specify the answer key as well, but that answer key will not be shown to the students. So in this case, you can specify how many points or marks that it carries in this case, and the feedback. Uh,
It's not necessary the
you
feedback,
don't need
answer
to worry
feedback.
about the
Or you can
feedback.
select the correct answer. Simply click on any of
Select
the options.
whatever the options say.
Yeah,
Let's assume order of
first
n
one is
is the
the
correct
correct
answer.
option. So we have
So
specified the key there as
key,
well.
and remember this key that we are specifying. Basically, we are specifying it to the system, not to the student. Student will not be basically exposed to this key unless explicitly you want them to see this.
Yeah, yeah. There is an option later.
There's an
on
option
we
that
can
we will
talk
explore
about.
later on. So what exactly we have done is that we have created a question. We have already specified which is the right
Answer to
key or
it,
answer
right
for
key.
this particular question. Do not
This obviously
do
will
not
be
be worried
used.
about this tick, the green tick.
Yeah, that's
That
what I
will
was
not be
about to say.
visible.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
it's actually only for Google later
it's
on
only
for
for Google.
auto evaluation or
That's
assigning
what.
points.
So if you just want to look at how exactly does my question look, you can simply take a preview over here. So if I give my enrollment number, and since let's give 4 digit, and as you can see that there was a constraint of at least having 10 digits, and I already only
Exactly.
specified
In fact, we
4,
specified exactly
exactly
10.
10.
Yes.
So
If
Google
we
is giving
specify,
me an error that the enrollment is an incorrect enrollment. So I just need to make sure that I basically enter a valid enrollment number. This is a 10-digit enrollment number,
yeah.
which usually should be accepted. And then the section number 2 basically opens up. In section number 2, what you can see is that there is no hint anywhere about the key or the correct
Yeah.
answer. So you do not need to worry about that green tick that we just saw. So the student basically can select any possible option whatsoever he wants. If he believes in the other part, then he can basically click it and type in the question. But what's important is that he cannot skip the question. He necessarily needs to answer. Even if it's the wrong answer, he needs to answer it.
That's because we specified
Because we
that's
specified
required.
that's a required question, absolutely. So once he's done with that question, he can possibly just submit the answer. So the response has been recorded. There are some other functionalities that we'll be talking about very shortly. So likewise, if you just want to create more questions, you can simply go on to the add button and
Keep on adding.
we can keep on adding. So this way,
In fact, we
basically,
can also divide these questions into sections as well if
right.
you want.
Absolutely.
Each section will be shown one at a time.
One at a time, absolutely right. So it's basically dependent upon the teacher whosoever is basically sitting on the question paper. If you want the student to basically preview a single question at one point of time, then all you need to do is that you have to basically create different sections, and every single section will be continuing one question
Single
only.
question.
Single question only. And if you believe that there's no problem in basically displaying all the questions together, then you can do the same
You can create a third section and
third,
add another
question, or else you can put multiple questions inside one section.
You could show that.
I have actually created one section. I've already basically created a quiz I was creating earlier. So this section, this quiz that I've created, consists of 3 sections basically.
Okay.
Section 1 in this case basically will be accepting the email address of that student.
Okay.
And then the section 2 in this case basically will ask you for your enrollment ID. And my third section basically contains the multiple questions.
Yes.
So all you need to do is that you need to keep adding here questions. So those will be accumulated into the section that you have just created. So once you have basically created the question form, it will look something like this. But that should not be it. We have
you can preview this.
Yeah,
example.
we can preview this example as well. So as you can see, there's an email address. Let's type in this email ID. Likewise, there's an enrollment number, and then there are some questions. I'll come back to this page very shortly. First, let's talk of some settings that we need to discuss in this case. So what about these settings? So how do we basically make those constraints or the validation that we need to set? How do we do that using all this?
There are a couple of settings which are available to us in Google Classroom for these question papers. See, this is online, isn't it? And we are asking students to fill in the responses and so on and so forth.
Right.
We obviously need to identify a student. Yes, we have seen one of these by specifying an enrollment number. We can also use their email IDs.
Yes.
And this email ID also will help us to ensure that each student takes this exam only once.
Right.
So obviously we do need this.
We do not want to give them the flexibility enough that they can basically reattempt
the question paper.
Yes.
So within this time period, the student can respond only
Should
once for the whole question paper.
Yes.
So or we would say a student should give should be able to give this exam only once. So obviously we can identify a student only by his email ID, and these email IDs should obviously be known to us earlier, so that we can send them the links of these this question paper. So in the settings, this option in the general tab of the settings is this option collect email addresses. So if we check this, then in the question paper at the start, the field will appear. So I'll just show you an instance. So what I've simply done is that I've checked this button, right? So this question paper that you see of mine, I actually not basically asked for this email address explicitly. This email address question that you see is because that I have checked this email address. Exactly. This is because why you can see this email address question over here is because simply I have checked this button. If I uncheck this question will not be there in the form. Not be there, right? And then we have domain. Kashmir University domain, basically. I guess it's because we have response research is another option. If you check this, then whenever the student submits the response, he will be sent an email that your response has been recorded. If you want that to happen, then you should check it. You don't want just to make sure that the student knows that his response has been recorded. So you can simply check it. It will just make sure that the student gets this information via email that the response that he has recorded has been received, basically. So this next option that you see, that restrict users to University of Kashmir, is basically I have used my own official email ID to create this Google Classroom. So if you're making use of that email ID belongs to an organization. That belongs to an organization. The organization in this case is University of Kashmir. So if you create your own Google Classroom using some kind of official ID, so obviously you will get this kind of a message. This is just an option, basically. It's just an option. If you want responses to restrict to a specific organization, exactly, from a specific organization. So if I want that only the students of University of Kashmir should be able to answer my questions, or some students who have this valid email ID of University of Kashmir, then I can check it. But I will suggest it for the students that not all of the students basically carry official email IDs. We should uncheck it so that with even with Gmails or Yahoo mails, domain can also they can also be able to. The next option, limit to one response. This is an important. That's what I was talking about. This, if we check this option, yes, this limit to one response, then one email ID, a student having this email ID can respond to your question paper only once. He cannot submit multiple. He cannot reattempt after submitting. After submitting, he cannot reattempt. So actually, it's important that we check this button. Yeah. So just to restrict our student that he is not able to basically, he or she is not able to basically resubmit his responses. What we need to do is that we should basically be limiting it to a single response. That's how we do take exams. Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, this is something very important here. Respondents can basically edit after submit. As the name says, edit after submit. So once you submit your responses, it should probably be locked, actually. Exactly. So the student should not be able to edit his responses after he has submitted. So I guess we should not allow students to edit after they submit. So this should be unchecked. This checkbox should be unchecked. But at the end of the day, basically it depends upon the teacher what he wants. Maybe if he wants the students to submit. So the idea basically is that once the student has submitted his response, if I enable this button, that will enable that student to basically edit or make change or modifications to his response and resubmit the response. Then we have the summary charts and the text responses. Now, this is basically for the students. They can see how many attempted questions they have attempted correctly and incorrectly, and in the form of diagram, in the form of charts, and all that. Exactly. How many are correct and how many are incorrect. I guess this again, it's flexible. It's flexible. Up to the teacher if he wants the student. If you want them to see the score, what they have scored, the correct number of questions that have been answered correctly, the number of how many students probably. I guess it also shows you. The average of all the students, how many attempted which questions and which were correctly answered correctly. And in fact, towards the end of this video, we'll be basically displaying that what exactly do we get in response if I check it. How exactly does it display the answer? That I will be showing towards the end of this video. Second tab in this case is the presentation tab. So progress bar, I guess, is self-explanatory. Yeah, students will be able to. How many questions they have attempted? Show that progress bar. Yes, in fact, we have that. So this here out here is basically nothing but a progress bar. So this gives the student an idea that how many pages you have already completed and how many are left. So he can basically manage his manage in his timing.
So he gets an idea that how many I have to basically attempt and how many I've already done. Then if you shuffle this, so this is an interesting option over here.
Yeah,
Something, right?
yeah. Actually, by default, Google does not, or Google Classroom does not assign question numbers to
Right.
the question. You have to, yourself specify that.
Specify
If you,
question
if you
number
want,
1, 2,
if
3,
you want,
4.
and people, students today are very smart. People will be online while giving the exam online on their WhatsApp group and so on and so forth.
They can actually exchange
Yeah,
messages.
they might be exchanging
Message
messages. This question
and discuss.
is being shown, and which is the answer, and they might share it with other people. So what Google has allowed this by this option, shuffle question order, is that different respondents will
Get it in a different order.
will get the questions.
So what's question number 1 for student A will be question number 10 for student B.
Maybe, yeah, something like that. So
Something like that.
if we do not number these questions,
Right.
and it will be difficult for the students to come up to a consensus.
Right.
In
Each question basically we are talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's some confirmation message at the end of it, which is the default message of your response has been recorded, which simply basically gets displayed at the end of the submission, that whatever responses you have basically submitted, that has been recorded. If you want, you can basically change the message and put some other comfortable message, some other message that you are comfortable with in this case, right? Then there's another tab of quizzes. So the first option there says make this a quiz.
So if we do not make this a quiz, then the responses will not be evaluated automatically by Google.
Okay.
So this is important for us if we want to save some time. So
Yes.
if we make this a quiz by setting this,
if we want Google to do half of our job,
yes,
yes,
evaluating the correct answers and giving the score to the students, then we should make this a quiz.
So instead of going through all those student responses and checking it out manually, that which one of them is correct and which one is not, the simple click on this option will basically enable us to relieve us from that.
This is actually for what we gave those answer keys.
Right.
Isn't it?
Yes.
That's how.
So this is where the answer keys comes in.
That was not for the students.
This was for the Google to understand that which one is the correct option and which one is not the correct.
So that we can auto evaluate.
Right. Then there is another option, locked mode on Chromebooks.
Now this is not free. This option, you have to purchase the pay to Google.
To pay to make use of it.
This simply restricts a respondent who is using Google Chrome or something like that, or who is using a web browser to look at the question paper.
Right.
It does not allow a user to open other tabs.
Right.
Maybe Google search something or some other material.
So it basically during that period it restricts you to this page.
To that particular page, the question page on.
Right.
Obviously, it's not a free option.
So you have to pay for it.
Yeah,
well, if you can afford it, you should go for it.
And it's not necessary always.
If you can afford it,
because people have different devices.
Right. They can make use of some other device. Absolutely. Okay. The release rate is nothing but how the student has performed in this exam. So what you can do is that you have two possible options. One, that immediately the moment student submits his answers, immediately he gets basically a record or a response that how exactly he has performed in this particular exam. He will get it in the form of a score, in the form of how many are correct or how many are incorrect. That's one option. Or else you can basically delay it for some time. Maybe you manually want to review, you want to go through it as a teacher, and at a later stage release those grades or release those results.
This is a little bit important here, because if we, for example, immediately release these grades, maybe it's possible that sometimes your answer key is mistaken, or you do not have a consensus with the students on the answer.
Right.
So you might want to review the responses later on.
The way we do it in the physical exams, we basically take the exam, then we release the answer key, then we take a consensus, and then we make the final results.
We'll let Google to grade these students.
Yes.
Maybe have a look at those grades. Have a look at those grades, and maybe due to some reasons, maybe we might need to change the key or something like that.
Verify the answers once.
Exactly. So it's important.
So it's better that we keep it for
it's
a later.
Better, not important.
For a later stage, to be basically have a manual review, and then basically
just to be a little bit sure about.
Then there is some option about the respondents, the students who take this exam, that what possible things they can see. One among them is the missed questions. So you should not basically, I believe, get misled with the name. Missed questions is not about the questions that students have missed. He has not been able to attempt. It's about basically those questions that were actually answered incorrectly. So it basically, after it submits the answer, final answer, it basically tells the student that this particular answer that you have submitted is a wrong answer.
I guess this should not be.
So I guess it's advisable to basically not to
students just need to know their grades.
Yes.
They can later come up.
We can let them know at a later stage that what was the correct key and how many you have scored basically. One another problem with this possibly can be that you can basically get in touch with his friend and let him know that this particular option is a wrong option. Do not go with that option, right? And again, this is basically the moment he submits his answer, you basically actually display the original, actual, real key and tell him that this, and this is the actual correct.
This is important. It should not be
that we should basically uncheck it, all right? And this is a point value. This is just to give him an idea that how many value points he has scored. Simply, so it basically depends upon the evaluator. Does he want the students to know whether or not how many points he has scored? So I guess, in my personal opinion, I will keep it off and I will let them know at a later stage after I have done the evaluation. So we'll save it here. These are the only 3 tabs that we have. So what we have done is that we have basically set up a question paper, and the important settings related to that question paper we have already set. So what else do we need to basically make sure that the examination is in place? The form is in place.
I guess that this is it. As far as the form goes, we can again cross-examine by preview.
We can basically take a preview over here if you want. We can basically take a preview over here and see how exactly does it look like. All those questions, if you want, if you take the preview and after you're satisfied with this, so I guess all the changes, and it's important that you should make sure that all the changes they have been saved in your drive.
Yeah. There is no save button here.
There's no save button. You just need to close the window. You just need to close the tab, and you just need to make sure that those changes have been saved in your drive.
There is another option though, that send button in the right corner, top right corner.
Yeah, that we need to.
Yeah, we can send this form by email directly to our students.
First, I guess we can share it amongst ourselves, amongst teachers.
Exactly.
We can share
the text which is add collaborators there.
Add collaborators.
Yeah. You can click there and it you can send this form to other teachers who might add questions to it,
or verify questions.
Or verify the questions to it. And you can also email it to the students. They can simply respond it via their email.
So there are basically 2 options. One, either you have students in your Google Classroom already and you can share it with them, or if you want to send it them at an individual list, so you can simply type in the email ID of them and then get into the email.
So this field there too. As it says, so we can type in all the email IDs and send it to our students. But since we are mainly using Google Classroom, we will not use the send button. We will assign this exam.
And we will use a different functionality of assigning it instead of using this.
But this way we can schedule it as well.
Also, this is a way basically to generate a link. You can basically generate a particular link to this particular form, and you can also share this link with your fellow friends if you need to. And this is
you can also embed it in some web page.
If you want to. So I would suggest not to use the send form and instead assign it to the students. But if you want to
Google Classroom.
In Google Classroom, okay, fine. So I guess by this we have explored all the possible options that are there. So all you need to do is that you just need to close. The change have automatically basically been recorded into the So I can see that a new classroom examination MCA3 has already been created. In this case, I can actually verify it. In this case, this examination that has been created. Okay.
In the classwork tab.
In the classwork tab,
it's a draft.
See, it's a draft.
We have not yet assigned it.
Because we have not yet assigned it, right? Absolutely. There's no due date. We have not yet set any particular due date for this. If you want to recheck your form that you have just created, simply click it and it will take you back to that form. If you want to make any additions,
there's a button on the bottom right corner.
There's an edit button out here. If you see in the right corner, yeah. So using that button, you can basically edit it again and make any possible modifications that you need to. So we have actually successfully created a Google form. That's basically loaded with questions, right? So what I next need to do is that I need to basically make sure that my students are basically able to access this form. And 1, 2, I need to make sure that they do it on a particular date, the scheduled date. 3, I do not want students to basically get eternity time to basically fill the answers. I need to basically limit them as well. So how do I do that exactly?
Now, if you go to the classroom,
okay, my classroom.
Yeah. there is an option there. See this, it shows us a draft.
Yes,
It
out here.
says it's a
Yes,
draft,
out here is
and
a
if we
draft.
click on these options there,
Yes,
it asks us to edit it. So we'll edit it,
we'll edit it. Right.
and
On the right side of it, on the right side of the page, we can see that there are some
yeah,
different options.
on the right side of the page, there are so many options available which will help us to schedule or assign it to the students.
Right.
So the first one is when is this exam scheduled? So on the assign button, near the assign button, the top right corner, there's a drop down menu,
Yes.
and there is an option schedule.
Yes, absolutely.
So we select the date and time when we want to
This
schedule
date
it.
and time is basically about when the students can get access to this
Yeah,
page.
when the access will start.
So as of now, even if I share it to my students, they will not be able to access it. They will be only able to access it basically on a particular scheduled time and date.
They will not even know there is an exam.
They will not even know.
Yeah, they will not.
So even if I add my students to the Google Classroom, they will still not know that there is an exam.
Yeah, if you schedule it for a later date, they will not have any hint of that
access to
unless you tell them.
Yes.
Unless you have to obviously communicate to them that this on this particular date this exam will be scheduled. So be ready in your classrooms, and so in your classroom and give the responses.
So we
let's
can schedule it for a later date as well.
Yeah.
That should not be a problem. And what I have done here is that I've scheduled it for on June 25th at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
So this is how I will be scheduling the exam.
So now this is scheduled. Okay.
So the exam stands scheduled. As you can see from draft, it has changed. The message is changed to scheduled on June.
Exactly. Now still there are certain options that we have to set.
Right. So if I go back to edit, right.
The first thing is how many points we have not yet assigned the number of points. So depending upon how many questions
we assigning a single mark or 2 marks to the
Exactly.
question. So whatever marks you have and how many number of questions you have, accordingly you can basically fix the value for this. So whatever value you are comfortable with, you can basically assign those points in this
now
case.
this due date
is
the one which basically specifies when this exam should end.
Yes.
So if we have, let's suppose, a 30-minute exam or a 40-minute exam, so we have to set the due date accordingly.
So we have actually scheduled it at 11 o'clock on June 25th.
So we have
half an hour.
The due date should be the same day.
Same day.
Yeah, 11:30.
With addition of that time.
If you click on
so that for due date, there is no due date satisfied as of now. So on the June 25th, what I need to tell them is that at 11:30, I'll stop recording these.
So we scheduled it for June 25th, 2020, from 11 p.m. or a.m. I'm not sure if that was a.m.
I guess that was a.m.
a.m. So, and we are specifying the due date for it the same day, but 30 minutes later.
30 minutes later, right.
Now,
so the exam is of duration 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
Now the problem here is that once the exam starts, okay, at 11 o'clock on 25th, and we are specifying the due date 30 minutes later.
Right.
After 30 minutes, within these 30 minutes, obviously students will be able to respond.
Absolutely.
That's not a problem. But after 30 minutes, it will not stop the students from responding. They will still be able to. They will still be able to record their responses.
Right.
Now, what Google does is all those responses which are after the due date and time, 11:30 in our case, they will be marked as submitted late.
Okay, right.
And it automatically assigns a timestamp to that response.
Exactly at what point of time did they submit this response?
Now, as a teacher, you have flexibility. Now, either you can manually stop taking responses at 11:30, or you can allow students to submit even after the due time.
And later on go through.
And later on you can check that which students have submitted late and how much late have they submitted, and whether you want to entertain the answers or not.
And if I have to manually stop the students from doing it, how do I stop them?
If you manually want the students, if for example at 11:30 you want to end the exam, no responses are to be taken
at 11:31.
So we simply click on that particular form. On the left side, we already have that on our screen. So we click on this form and edit it on the bottom right corner.
Right.
And we can see there are two tabs. Yeah, the questions tab that we had earlier filled. And on the responses tab, it will summarize all the responses that the student has taken.
So one option I would like to that in those settings when we are talking of those response charts and other things,
Yeah,
this is what we were talking about
yeah,
at that point of time.
that's right.
So this is the correct answer or this is the wrong answer. So these graphs and charts that will be formed.
So
you're
this is
saying,
a summary, and there's question-wise summary also in the
right,
second tab. You can see.
Absolutely.
You can see on the questions.
The questions as well.
So per question, how many
responses we have
exactly
received.
we have only one response in this case.
Yes, and what is the student ID, who is responded that. So we can all that information,
and individual as well.
And
it summarizes the student information, so on and so forth.
And the answer that is specified in this case is the wrong answer. So all that options.
However, for us, it would be better if we have a a kind of an Excel file where all the student enrollment numbers are listed, their responses and marks are listed.
Right.
So you can see that green icon there. Basically, is a spreadsheet.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a Microsoft Excel file, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It automatically creates it in your Google Drive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it will be available in your Google Drive.
So if you create it and basically get a complete information or data,
if you could click on that. So this is the
Google file,
everything
Excel file that you get.
Exactly.
So
this is the timestamp.
When you were saying that after 11:30 he will be still able to record the responses, when exactly did you respond? That will be there in the timestamp.
Yeah, exactly. That will be in the timestamp.
And
the email address, the score.
So basically, it's the complete gist of entire whatever has happened.
This is the file that, as a teacher, I would like.
You have record.
Yeah.
You have records. Your records that you can maintain this.
And the score will be auto-evaluated.
So this will make your job basically very easy. Right. And we are basically talking about stopping them from accepting responses.
If we want to stop taking responses
at the exact point of time,
so we simply need to turn off that button, accepting responses.
This point. Right.
Yeah. Once this is red.
So whatever due date you have set.
Yeah.
Immediately after that due date, there will be no acceptance of further responses.
Yeah. If I turn off this button and this band is red there, then the students will not be able to submit. They will be shown a message that this form no longer takes response. It's again it's a flexibility for sometimes internet speeds are slower or the click of the button is a little bit later.
Response time is not that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's better if do not stop taking responses. It's
maybe a minute or a 5 minute or a 10 minute delay will not hurt anything.
We'll still be able to identify those students
in the Excel file.
Exactly.
So I guess this is all about how do we basically create quizzes using Google Classrooms, right? And how do we create students, and how do we accept responses, and how do we stop them on a particular time. So I guess this should help you out or make it easy for you to set question papers in online mode. If you do have any questions or if you do have any issues that you are facing, please feel free to write them in the comment section. We'll get back to you at the very earliest possible time. And also we'll be back with the next session wherein we'll be talking about how do we make use of quizzes or a Kahoot app to basically
other alternatives.
All the other alternatives apart from Kahoot.
And please don't forget to subscribe.
Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you very much. Take care.